very shortly. There we go. All right, so welcome everybody to the Economics for Success training. I've got a bunch of materials that you'll all have access to at the end of the training as well as throughout as I show them. So we're first just going to go through the basic start of training, which will be a little bit of history about JA. We'll talk a little bit about being in the classroom and some tips and tricks for that. And then we'll also go through the actual program itself. And I basically will actually go through the entire PowerPoint that you will be using while you're at Mount Royal University doing the Economics for Success program, so you will be familiar with it. You'll have time after, or you'll have to take some time after to go through with the workbook and everything, which you'll have time to do after. So you guys can do that on your own time. But I just want to show you everything so you know. All right. So again, here's our agenda, which I just went through. Excellent. So this is our slide to introduce the JSA Elementary Middle School team. So I am Rebecca McKay, so I'm the one on the left. So you know what we look like. Kimberly's on the right there, and she is just about to take off to New Brunswick for a wedding for 5 days. So we're not going to see her till next week, but you guys will see her and I at MRU. So if you have any questions, of course, feel free to ask. All right, brief history about junior achievement. In 1919, in Springfield, Massachusetts, Horace Moses developed junior achievement to help youth gain business experience. And then in 1959, the junior achievement of Southern Alberta was created in Calgary, which is here, of course. And today we reach 18,000 students annually through multiple programs. And did you guys know that junior achievement is worldwide? We are in 121 different countries, and we're in all over Canada and the U.S. as well. So if any of you ever move or transfer or somewhere else, you can always volunteer for us. All right. So training materials. These are all things that those of you on the webinar will have access to once we're finished, but it's just a list of stuff that we'll be going through and using this morning or afternoon. It's the afternoon. All right, so the program guide. You guys are downloading that. Same thing with the student workbook. A tent card. I have those here in person. I'm sure you guys can visualize what it is, but it's basically a little card that we give. It's intended for you to write your name on it so that we can, call each other by name, and it's something that we also use in the classroom. The volunteer role, delivery checklist, icebreakers, teaching tips, all of this stuff is things that we're going to go through during training, with the exception of the agenda. Those aren't developed yet. We're just waiting on some numbers and times from Mount Royal University, so I haven't been able to confirm that yet. But otherwise, we'll be able to show you guys all of that stuff. So, understanding your role as a volunteer. We definitely want you guys to realize that you're a role model as well as an experienced resource to the students. You're also a facilitator, of course, for the program and a motivator. Those are, of course, your roles. And then the teacher has their own set of roles, and this is something that I find really important to a lot of volunteers, is that the teacher will maintain the order and discipline of the group and of the class. They will also support your efforts, and they will likely introduce you to the students. MRU is sometimes a little bit of a different experience in such that you might introduce yourself, but we always make sure that you will take a little bit of time and you can talk to the teacher so they'll be able to introduce you. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. All right. So into JA volunteer conduct. Dressing appropriately is important. We say business casual because we don't want you to look too formal or too unapproachable to the students, but just do whatever you would wear normally to work or whatever's comfortable for you. And I say comfortable, I mean shoes as well. So guys, just keep in mind when you're going to put your high heels on that morning. We want to keep in mind that you're going to be standing a lot, so you might not want to wear shoes that are too uncomfortable. So. Use appropriate language. I know that you guys aren't going to go in the classroom and start swearing or anything like that, but remembering that these students are in grade 9, so they're about 14, maybe 15 at this point because it is later in the year. Some of them might be 13. They may or may not understand the vocabulary that you use, but normally for this program, I don't find that's a big issue. Value and respect diversity. Of course, we've all got different opinions and viewpoints, so just respecting that. Never meet with students on your own. Of course, this seems really obvious. You're not going to give the students your business card and like go out to Starbucks with them. That would be crazy. It means whenever there's, a break, so you might take a break where the students go out of the classroom, like, for example, at lunchtime, and they might be really excited about the content or really excited to tell you something. It's not really a big issue at MRU, but sometimes you might find that the student wants to talk to you, and all of a sudden you and the student are the only people left in the classroom. Just take that conversation out into, say, the hallway or somewhere where there's more people so that you're not the only two alone. It just eliminates any questions or gray areas. So. Avoid physical contact. So we say things like high fives, handshakes, and fist bumps are all A-okay, but anything after that isn't necessarily, we don't really need to go into that, I don't think, with you guys. Uphold laws. Of course, we're not going to go in the classroom and break any laws. I know you're not. And last but not least, don't use the volunteering experience to sell, endorse, or solicit business from students, teachers, or other volunteers unless the contact's first initiated by them. I don't find that this is really a big issue, but every once in a while we get volunteers that are, they're selling a specific product, whether it be like a home business or, it has to do with their actual business that they're in. But we do absolutely appreciate that this day for a corporation or for an employee is great as community recognition. So we just say that, of course, keep the business conversations or the sales pitch out of the delivery day unless somebody specifically approaches you and asks. All right. Group exercise. So, of course, there's only 3 of us sitting in the room, and then there's the rest of you on the phone here. So what we're going to do is just a little bit of a group exercise in a virtual sense. So this is an exercise that you could modify for your classroom, and it could be anything, any question that you might be able to come up with that has to do with the content or the material. And in this case, because the material that we're going over is being a JA volunteer, so my question is, how do you feel about public speaking in a classroom? And what I would typically get volunteers to do is line up in a scale of, really comfortable to not very comfortable to super nervous. And then we'll go through and find out. So what we'll do, because we're all attending this by webinar, is just chime in, and I'll probably start with Jane, I think, and then I'll kind of go down the list, and then we'll finish with the 2 that I have in the room. And tell me your name, and tell me why you are comfortable or not comfortable public speaking in a classroom. All right, go ahead.
Who's first?
Let's go, you know what, let's go with Mike. How's that sound?
All right. I'm comfortable speaking in the classroom. I've done JA before. It's been a while when it was ESIS.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been a long time since we called it ESIS, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's been a while. So yeah, so I'm comfortable speaking in the classroom.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Stephen, I know you can't talk. Do you want to just type us a little note? Excellent. You just finished. Oh, awesome. So you helped us out with company programs. That is a really awesome event, or program that we do for high school students.
Mm-hmm.
So, very cool. What about Jane? Are you available or able to speak, Jane?
I hope so.
Oh, good. I can hear you. Good.
Excellent. So, yes, I teach adult education. So, in groups that are not too big, I'm relatively comfortable.
All right. So you'd say probably you're a little bit middle of the pack.
I'd say I'm probably 70% on a sliding scale of 0 to 100.
Okay. Awesome. And Abdul, what do you think?
Well, I I've never really participated in the JASAB before, but I feel I'll be very comfortable speaking with the kids, mostly because I think I definitely know I've been through the experience before. This is really nothing they're experiencing right now that I haven't experienced, and I'm just looking at it from a different paradigm, from a much more mature perspective. So yeah, I can definitely offer something to them that of invaluable experience.
Awesome. And we'll go with Barry, sitting here. Awesome. Good to hear. So I'm not sure if you all have heard that, but Barry's really comfortable. Good. And Hannah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and Hannah is a JA staff member, and so she participates in a lot of public speaking, and I'll go last, I guess. And yeah, I am also quite comfortable. Every once in a while, there's a curveball or somebody will throw something at you, so I would say that I'm like 90% on the scale. I've got a lot of public speaking experience and a lot of classroom experience, but I always like to be a little bit nervous before I go in because it just sort of gives you that little extra boost of energy or a little oomph to what you're doing. So if I'm not nervous, there's something wrong. All right. So again, that's an exercise that you guys can modify, and it can help you get to know the students. You can use it as an icebreaker first thing in the morning. It's awesome. I like to use this activity a lot. So, all right. So student characteristics in classroom management. I know it's probably been a long time for a lot of you since you were in a middle school or, high school class. So just to think about these questions, what were you like as an adolescent, and what did you and your peers react to a guest in the classroom like? Or, and then if there were challenges that, say, your peers reacted to, what would you do? This is an exercise that we could do as what we would call a think, pair, share situation. In this case, it won't work, but I like to bring this up. It's another technique that I like to use in the classroom. And basically, we propose the question. So, for example, what were you like as an adolescent? Think about it, and then pair up with the person sitting next to you, or maybe somebody in your group, and share your experience or share your answer to the question. And sometimes it's a great way to get the students talking and thinking without sharing in front of the whole class. So what I'll do is anybody who wants to share, if you guys want to tell us what you were like as an adolescent, feel free to chime in. Nobody?
I'll go, Abdul.
Okay.
As an adolescent, I was a very troublesome person. I caused a lot of trouble, I remember very well, and then due to that, actually, my parents did decide to send me to a military school, which is where I kind of grew up for about 6 years of my life, and then I think that was really a life-changing experience for me. It made me see life from a different perspective. I became a little more diligent in the things I do. I started perceiving life with a lot more care as opposed to being carefree. But yeah, I was quite the troublesome adolescent for sure coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you had a guest in your classroom, say before you went to military school, how did your peers react to having a guest?
Excuse me, I didn't get that.
When you when you were in school, how did you and your peers react to having a guest in the classroom?
Usually quite rowdy because usually when you have a guest, they usually didn't have that authoritative figure that the teacher had. So we usually took advantage of that, got a little rowdy, obviously not as composed as we would be, asking redundant questions that weren't pertaining to whatever reason the guest was in the first place. So just, for lack of a better word, being annoying little kids.
Very true. Awesome.
Yeah.
So as a whole group, what would we do as presenters to maybe combat some of those challenges? You can go first, Abdul, of course.
Sorry, I didn't get that. What did you say?
So the challenges that your class would have provided to a presenter, you know, asking questions that were a little redundant or maybe being a little bit rowdy, how would you as a presenter now sort of mitigate that situation?
Well, I would definitely make them aware that that is not the focus of the session. This is exactly why we're here, and I will remind them of the reason why we come in together in the first place. And obviously, trying to really boost that team camaraderie so everyone knows that, okay, given the fact that we're here for a certain cause to talk to you about a specific subject, anyone deviating or saying anything tangent to that conversation obviously distracts the entire group from that.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a really great way to go about that. That's a really great standpoint. Another one is to also just make sure that the class knows that you're there to, you want to be there to help them. So, you know, once you put a little bit of like, yeah, I'm here to help you, it's good. I find when I have a group that's a little bit excitable or a little bit loud, I like to channel that energy. So I don't necessarily stifle. I just try to channel it a little bit so it's a little bit, like you said, sort of try to change their focus onto the actual materials rather than, you know, if they're unfocused or off topic. So, but sometimes that energy, if you can channel it the right way, it can be an awesome thing to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So let's skip on to the next section. And we'll talk a little bit about students with special needs. I'm also going to share with you a personalities in the classroom sheet so we can talk a little bit about different characteristics and personalities that the students have. But for now, we'll talk a little bit about students with special needs. So most students with special needs, most especially with this event, because students are coming in from their schools and they're all bused together, a lot of the time you'll find that the special needs students are integrated into the regular classroom. They do have teaching aids. They might have a student buddy if they don't have a teaching aid, or they might have extra teacher attention, or a combination of the three. There's also something that we call knowledge and employability, or sometimes you'll see it as TLP, which is something taste learning program it's called. So it's basically students that just learn at a lower level or maybe don't excel academically will be placed in this type of class, and it's just a smaller group. I know that there are 2 or 3 of them coming to MRU. I will let you know if I have slotted you into one of those classes, but I usually reserve them for volunteers that have, you know, either shown a specific interest in that type of class or have volunteered many times before and, really have a great classroom atmosphere. If that's something that you specifically want, let me know. I can definitely group you up with one of those groups. And then, like I said, with those groups, there's extra educational support for these students. So if they're integrated into your class, though, a lot of the time you might not even notice until, I don't know, halfway through or almost through the end of your morning. I've found that sometimes I have a student that's, you can kind of like see like maybe they're a little bit different, but you might not know that it's a specific learning disability just because they can fit right in with their groups. So I'm just going to jump out of this PowerPoint for 1 second and share with you guys the personalities in the classroom list. All right, and while we're waiting for that to load up, we'll just have a look. There we go. All right, so this is a sheet that will be included in your materials bin or with your materials at MRU. You can also, you'll be also able to download and save it after the meeting, so you can have a look at it. But I'll just touch on a couple of these personalities, I guess, or types of students. So, of course, we have the class clown. That's what we call your frenemy. So, like I said a little bit ago, instead of stifling the student's energy, try to channel it or try to get that student on your side. I find little phrases like, I like your energy, we're going to have a lot of fun working together today, or I've even said things like, wow, that was a really great idea you had. Maybe we can, maybe we could do this instead, or maybe we could do this with that. And then once you get them sort of on your team and on your side, they'll be able to channel the rest of the class. I find that is really easy. I do actually love my class clown students when I get them in a class. They're kind of a blast. They usually are really excited about what you're teaching them, especially the content of this program. It pertains to every one of the students. So I'm going to skip over 7. We're definitely going to come back to it. We talked about learning disabled already, but there's a note here that I want to point out, and it says, always speak to the teacher before the class starts about any student concerns. This is so important because there might be a student in your class, for example, who's colorblind, and they can't see the color green, and then you're writing on, say the whiteboard with a green marker. They won't be able to see it. Stuff like that. These students also might come across as like a shy student or a slacker. Those can sometimes be coping mechanisms, so try to just, partner them up with somebody in the class who might be able to help them out or something like that. The teacher will also, like I said, be able to help you guys out with a lot of this stuff. Refuses to participate. This is another one of my favorite types of students. It seems a little bit funny why, but I find that they're usually a really high-functioning or really smart student, and they just don't participate. Sometimes it's that there's something going on in the student's life. You don't know kind of what's gone on, so you can gently encourage, but we obviously can't make the students do anything. I had a student like this in a classroom last month, and I just took specific exercises out of my workbook, the program that we're working on, and I said, oh, why don't you try to do this, and then why don't you share it with the class when you're finished? So I gave him one thing to do for the entire day, and I had him share it at the end of the class, and he did awesome, and he was just like, thanks so much for trying to include me. So I've done stuff like that before, but talk to the teacher. And then, let's see, the talkative group. Usually it's a group of them. It's not normally just one. You'll find a group of them. They like to talk. They get a little chatty. My favorite thing to do is when I have a group that's talking is I sort of walk over to where they're at. This does 2 things. First, it'll make them quiet down. They realize that you're close by and you can hear what they're saying. And second, when you do hear what you're saying, you might even realize that they're talking about the program itself. While that's exciting and awesome that they're talking about the content, you want them to be focusing on what you're instructing or what's going on at the moment, because they might be disrupted to the rest of the class who's trying to, follow along with the program. So you can, if you're partnered up in the class, which a lot of you will be, your partner can, go and quietly talk to a group of students who's being talkative while you're instructing the lesson. That's why we have a buddy system in the class. It works really well. And last but not least, number 7, the bully, right at the top of the page here. So address this with the teacher if anything happens as soon as possible. Don't let the behavior continue, but we also want to be aware of re-victimizing the student. So that basically just means you don't want to, draw attention to something that happened in front of the whole class. Deal with it, just say, like, that wasn't a nice thing to say, or that's not acceptable, and just let the teacher know. Again, you have a buddy system. You have another partner with you in the classroom, so you should be okay. Most of the time, I find that when students are out on field trips or, off their school grounds, they're a little less comfortable, so they might not be, you probably won't see any or a lot of this. Even in school, I see it very rarely, maybe, I don't know, in a JA classroom, 15 times out of maybe 200 or 300 classes that we do in a year. So,
ready to go.
But just so you know what to do. Go ahead. Okay. All right.
Just a couple of quick comments on a lot of that stuff, and I think the key piece is making sure that the teacher remembers that they're the ones responsible for managing the classroom.
Absolutely. And we have
some who
go ahead,
disappear. And then they also can help. It comes with managing the classroom, I guess. We talk about fidgety and that kind of thing. If they just tend to do something every once in a while to reset their attention, they'll know how to do that, so they can make sure they're active, and that helps a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And at MRU, I find that most of the time, the teachers, of course, that are there are teachers that do know the students, but a lot of the time they'll also have an extra, like, parent chaperone. Stuff like that will happen. So that person, of course, is intended to help with the, with the organization and with the facilitation of that day. But the other thing that we also try to do with the teachers is we do send them an event guide, and it's also included in a package that they receive every morning, which does instruct them that, of course, they'll be helping the volunteer during the class. some teachers you'll find are more engaged and some are less engaged. So, yeah. All right. So we'll talk specifically now about the EFS program, or Economics for Success, or some of you know it affectionately as ESIS, which used to be called the Economics of Staying in School. We've, of course, changed the name of the program to Economics for Success because while it is, the program is developed and made to encourage students to continue their schooling all the way through till high school, we also want them to be able to understand lifelong learning and career planning. So it's not just staying in school. It's also, maybe going back to school or maybe upgrading your skills as you, continue on through your career. So we also teach the students the importance of budgeting and financial independence, and the importance of course, role models and setting goals. This is actually our 21st year of the Economics for Success at MRU program. We had our 20th anniversary last year, so we're excited to kick off year 21. I'm looking forward to it. I think it should be a good event. So, all right. Talk a little bit about the program in specific here. So program materials. These are all the materials that you guys will be receiving on the day of at the event. You'll get a bin with it all. I think if some of you have done in-school stuff before, you get a bag. We do bins at MRU. It's just a little bit easier for us to pack and coordinate because we do about 20 to 24 classes each day. So I do in person have all the materials here with me, but I also have a supply sheet which you guys will be able to access, which basically shows you a picture of everything that you guys will have. So things like the Keys to Success game, which is a game that we'll play in one of the lessons. Job cards, another resource for one of our lessons. Hire This Person interview cards is another resource that we use. Certificates of completion. This is a certificate that the students receive at the end of the delivery. So it says you've completed the Economics for Success program. So that, and as well as a parent letter, will be included in every student workbook. The certificates I think you'll probably find actually outside of the workbooks, but the parent letters are in the workbooks. Certificates just go to the teacher. They'll write the student's name in on them and the date. That's about it. Tank cards, enough for all the students. So a lot of the stuff, of course, when it says 30, if you have a class that's a little bigger than 30, we'll pack enough for it. Sometimes you might have a class that's like 18 or 20 students. It just sort of depends on the school. We'll pack enough. Make sure that you guys have enough materials. All right.
On the certificate,
yep.
Does it have a spot for their name? Will they be on there, or do we get a class list, or how do we?
The teacher will have a class list with them, and they will be responsible for writing the students' names onto the onto that. So you don't have to worry about that. You might remember when we used to have to sign the parent letters. We don't have to do that anymore. And we've even made it easier where we've actually put them in the student workbook. So we don't even have to worry about giving that to the teacher. The students are going to get it first thing. So,
okay, great.
Yeah. All right. And I'm just going to pop open the EFS PowerPoint that we will be using. Have all of you been able to get the program guide and student workbook downloaded?
Yes.
Yes, okay, excellent. So we'll be using that for the next little section of the activity, or of this training session. So the EFS program has 4 lessons. Dream Your Success, Keep Your Balance, Discover Yourself, and Plan Your Success. There is a there's a theme here with the word your, keep your balance, discover yourself, stuff like that. So it all really has to do with the students themselves. All right, so this is the actual PowerPoint that you guys will be using. It's just loading up, and there it is. So this will be available for you to use at MRU. I highly recommend using it because it will take you through the program. It keeps you on track, and it's an amazing visual aid for the students. We just refreshed it last week or yesterday. I think it was finalized. So we've gone through a whole section of rebranding. So Jane, I will help you out. Just give me one quick second. Is there anybody else who hasn't been able to download the workbooks? No? Okay. Jane, what I'm going to do is I'll just email them specifically to you. And then for the rest of you, if you guys want to start just looking at the first section of the workbook. So there's two. One says EFS PG, which is your program guide, which looks like that. And this is the book that's got all the information about the program itself. So my suggestion is to just scroll until you get to where it says getting started. Where it says lesson 1, Dream Your Success. It's page 8 of the book itself. I don't know how the PowerPoint or how the PDF is exactly, but once you get to that section, you guys can start to look through the first activity, and I will just take 1 second to send a quick email off to Jane. Abdul, I'm actually going to send this to you as well. So you should see it in about 2 minutes, you guys. All right, so I'm sending that email out to you guys. You should have it in a minute. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So. All right, so everybody's good to go ahead?
Yep.
No, good. Okay, awesome. I have a little button here. Okay, all right, so all right, so lesson 1, of course, is called Dream Your Success. As you guys will see in the workbook, there's the section there, it's called Choose Your Success. And this slide will start you off with that activity. So you want to ask the students, are these people successful? So, I mean, we've got Steve Jobs or Sidney Crosby, Alison Redberg. Thinking maybe we'll update that given the recent political. We'll update that.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll change it to Stephen Harper or something. We just wanted to include somebody from politics, so.
Nancy.
Yeah, actually, that's a great idea, you guys. I'm going to definitely put Nenshi. No, we've got Ellen. I believe that's the fiance. Who's that? I don't even know. I don't even know. 3 and 3. Oh, yeah, I guess. Okay, whatever. We'll update it to another successful woman, perhaps, that the students would potentially recognize. Hillary Clinton. Great idea. All right. So, anyways, but, ask the students, do these people are successful? And, of course, this is still, well, yeah, they got lots of money or whatever, but is that their version of successful to them? Or, what does success mean to them in the first place? So, when we talk to the students about the activity Choose Your Success, we want to ask them, what do you dream of when you finish school? And there is a section in the student workbook. Don't feel like you have to jump between 2 PDFs because it's not really that thrilling. It's just a section there where the students have a bunch of lines to write in their information or write in some things that they have to think of. So what do you dream you'll do when you finish school? Where do you live? What kind of lifestyle? What career do you want to have? So it gets them to start thinking about that stuff. And it might be, I want to be totally famous and awesome. Or it might just be, I want to do something that's going to help other people, and I want to have a family that loves me and do things that I care about. So it just really depends on what every student wants. So, but this is good. It's self-exploration for them to learn about themselves. And then we move into core activity 2, which is called Exploring Self-Knowledge. You'll see that on page 9 of the PDF or of the program guide. And in the student's workbook, there's a triangle, and it's called the Triangle of Me, which has values, skills, and interests, which we can see here in this specific section as gears. So we have the students use their workbook and write down what are their values, what are their skills, and what are their interests. And it basically gets them to start thinking about, okay, well, this is what I'm interested in, this is what I value. And there's definitions for each of these things in the student's workbook as well as in the program guide. So it's just a great place for the students to start with this activity because it gets them to start thinking about themselves and what they want personally. So. All right. First thing in the morning, core activity 3, we're going to do a board game with the students. So this is what we call keys to success. There isn't a page in the student workbook for this. Like I said, it's a board game. It looks a lot like the Monopoly board game. I'm going to open it here just so that those of us that are sitting here can see it. But I will send a picture of the game along with the materials that you guys will all have access to once the meeting's finished. And basically, it's got a section where it says go. So you have your spot where it says go, and it says grab 2 keys. So it's like Monopoly where, when you pass go, you get $200 or $200,000, depending on what version you're playing. And when you pass go, so you get 2 key cards. So the point of this game for the students is to collect 4 key cards. So they start with 2, and the winner of the game is the first player, of course, to collect 4. Now you're wondering, well, how do they collect these key cards? Well, we have a set of green cards, which are the key cards, and we have a set of pink cards, which are scenario cards. We also call them opportunity knocks cards. So the opportunity knocks cards are cards that basically tell the students that they can move ahead or back based on the situation that's on it. So I'll read one for you guys really quick. You need money to take horseback riding lessons this summer. You decide to work in the stables to earn money for the lessons instead of asking your parents for the money. So that's a seized opportunity, and that's good. So the student will get to go ahead 2 spaces on the game board. There's also some where it's a missed opportunity. This one, I'll just read it for you. It says, you volunteer at the zoo cleaning the cages. You didn't show up yesterday because you wanted to go to the mall with your friends. You're not getting paid anyways because it was a volunteer position. So it's a missed opportunity. The student didn't fulfill their, their commitment to volunteering, or they didn't get the experience or reputation with the zoo. So it's a missed opportunity. So then they go back 2 spaces. So it's sort of they get to see, whether the things that they do in life are good or bad, if they want to. The next set of cards, like I said, we have a set of green key cards. These cards they also have specific spaces that they land on. So if the student lands on a spot that's got the picture of a key, it's going to have a question. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky, but there's instructions in the game board too. Is when the student lands on a key card spot, the students in their group have to pick up that card and read them the question that's on the back. So, for example, in this case, I have one card in my hand and it says true or false. Females shouldn't consider a career in skilled trades. So, if the student gets the question right, which is false, there are lots of opportunities for both women and men to work in skilled trades. Then, of course, they get to keep the card. If they get it wrong, which I doubt they would for that specific question, but if they do get the question wrong, then they would have to put the key card back at the bottom of the pile, and they don't get to keep the card. So in order for the students to keep their game cards or keep their key cards, they have to answer the questions right. And that's how they would get to 4. So the first student to 4 wins the game. You might find some groups play this really fast, and I've had that happen before where groups go through really quickly, and other groups in the same class take forever to play this game. So if that happens, just let them play a couple of times. I usually play until at least one team has somebody that wins. You can also have them all play till they get to 4, or, stuff like that. So it's a fun game. The students love playing it, and it's perfect because it's right at the beginning of the lesson. So it really gets them thinking and gets them moving and going first thing in the morning. So you'll find that it's awesome. If you guys do have questions about this, there's a whole section that explains everything I did on page 11 of your book. If you have further questions, feel free to ask me. I can explain it further. All right. And the last thing that we have with lesson 1 is a discussion. Every lesson has a discussion at the end. It basically wraps up that little section, and then we move on. So you want to ask the students why it's important to think about the future. What did you learn about education and future success? What can you be doing now to help yourself achieve success in the future? These are all things that we've got in our section of questions on page 11 of the volunteers program guide. We've got 3 that we specifically put up on the slideshow. These are the ones that we think are the best, but if you want to ask one of the other ones, that's fine. Absolutely, go ahead. All right. So lesson 2, keep your balance. This is the lesson that will take you the longest to go through, and it's also the one with the most impact and the most long-lasting results that we've found. Students will remember this, and I have a past JA student in the room who can testify they will remember this lesson when they are 30. She's not 30 yet, but she will remember this when she's 30. All right, so the first thing that we do with this lesson is called Guess That Price. So you'll see here we have this guess that price here. This is a link to a website which I may be able to show you. I would have to, just give me 1 second. It is a game show that we sorry, just had to double check something. All right, give me 1 second and I will pull it up. I just have to share my screen with you guys. All right, so what I've done is I've actually just shared you guys with my, with the actual PowerPoint. The web software doesn't allow me to click on links, which is sort of frustrating. So we will go from here. So when you are at the school, you will be able to click, where is the link as well? You guys will be able to click on a link here. Okay, it's not working, I'll have to fix that. That is something that I'll have to fix. But anyways, I just want to show you guys the web page itself, just so you get an idea of what we're going to be doing. And all right, so when you click on the link, it will look like this, which is The Price is Right, or Guess That Price. So in this case, we've got two sections here. So we've got Team 1 on the left, and we've got Team 2 on the right, and in the middle we've got peanut butter. So what we want the students to do is guess how much they think the peanut butter is worth. So let's go with $4 on the one side. So you just click and it brings up this calculator. Same thing on the other side. You will have access to a computer right at the front of the room, if any of you are worried. And then we'll go with $5 for this side. And it's based on whatever the students guess, but just so I can show you guys the mechanics of how this works. It was $4.19, so this team that guessed $4 is the best, or gets the point. So you'll see they have 100 points now. So, and then it goes through, we go through things like milk, and then we'll talk about YWCA or YMCA rec center passes or gym passes. I think it talks about, we have like ski tickets, or to go skiing, couches, TVs, all kinds of stuff that the students' parents, of course, buy currently. So I think there's about 10 of them, 10 different items. You can click through this. You will have access, of course, to do all of this stuff. So, all right. So we're just going to go back into the PowerPoint here. All right. All right. Okay. So there will be a link here to just click Guess That Price. Oh, there it is. See, I just had to be a little bit more patient, I guess. So there is a link here for you to click on that. It's not super intuitive. What I will do is I will make sure that this is big. Like I said, we just finished updating this, so awesome. All right, so going ahead is the next activity, moving day. This is the activity that the students will remember, I promise you. So the students are moving out on their own. They're getting kicked out. They're going to complete a budget for their first month of living independently. So they have no support from their parents. They have nothing. They are doing this on their own. All right. So this is a little table that we've developed to help the students go through their budget. So on page 6 and 7 of the student's workbook, if you're not in the student workbook PDF, no worries. The program guide also has pictures of what it looks like. So you can see in the little left or the little right on the program guide, it says, you know, things like food, a place to live, for rent, utilities, all this kind of stuff. So this table basically sums it all up And what you're going to do is get the students to go through and complete a budget using the estimated monthly amount column, which is the one on the left, for how much they're going to spend on stuff while they're living on their own. They can, there's a set of instructions for the students too. We assume that they're old enough to drive a car, and they can share accommodation, but each person must have their own bedroom. So those are the only two real, things that we specify with the students. All right. And then, after they've finished putting their budget together, we're going to pay them. So we're going to give them a job. So their monthly living expenses minus their net pay is their balance. What I have and what you will have in the classroom, I don't have examples that I can show you right away, but what I have are fictional job cards. So they're pieces of paper, basically, but each of them has a job on it. And there's a couple of them that have really great jobs, and there's a couple of them that have sort of really not so good jobs, so a little bit crummier jobs. So I have one in my hand. I'll just explain to you guys what it is, and it's a pizza job. He works at a pizza store restaurant or pizza restaurant, and the monthly pay, so what the student makes every month, is $1,087. So their net pay, of course, is $1,087, but it also shows all the gross pay deductions, everything like that. So the students can see that they made $1,440 in that month, but $350 of it was deducted for income tax, EI, and CPP. So, of course, they're only taking on $1,000. So now what the student has to do, based on whatever job you give them, is modify their budget to fit within the job that you've given them. So I also have a couple other jobs here. One's a oil and gas assistant, and that one's got, I think, around a $3,500 income. We also have one that's a painter, it's about a $2,000 income. And I have one super, super crummy one. It's called Summer Fundraiser, and the students are making $994. And the least paying one, I think, is $458. And it's a job that you do packing, like envelopes, and you get paid per piece. So easy money while watching TV, it's called. And so it's $431 a month, which is really low. So you can be strategic based on, what other students pick or what their budget looks like on how you hand out these jobs. Any questions? Everybody? Where are they? Oh my gosh, where did it go? Oh no, it's here. Okay, sorry guys. I just had a moment. I just need to show. All right, you guys. Sorry, I just had a long moment. Don't mind me. All right. So, impressions. You just want to ask the students what might happen in the future that could change their ability to live within their means. So, one great thing that I've used in the last year is what happened last June, of course, the flood. A lot of people had to dip into their savings, or they had to, take time away from their jobs, or do a lot of different things in order to live within their means, or in order to, continue to survive, because, of course, we had a natural disaster. Other things can happen too, like, when you, get married or have children, change jobs or move to a different city. Of course, all of these things can affect the students when they're living within their means. So that is the wrap-up, basically, and here it is, the discussion questions for this activity or for this lesson. So if you're looking for the discussion questions, they're on page 17 of the program guide. We have skipped through a couple of activities. A lot of the time, and almost always when it's an extended activity, we skip it. And that's because we just don't have time to go through everything. We want to get through the core activities and spend the most time on them. If you see an extended activity that you really like, of course, you can adapt it and go with it. But I suggest sticking with the core activities. So, moving on to lesson 3, which is called Discover Yourself. This is a lesson where the students are going to learn a little bit about careers, career planning, what kind of skills they have, things like that. So the first section, of course, is called Trends and Directions. And All right, so employability skills. Oh, trends and directions, no, this is a video here. I'm not sure it's not showing up, but that's okay. There is a video, and it could just be that this is the version that we updated on Friday at 2 instead of Friday at 3 last week, because I do know that there's a video for this, but it's basically a video that goes through the hot jobs or what jobs that we've got going on right now. Things like, I think it's health sector, stuff like that. So, of course, I'll double check and make sure that you guys are able to get the most up-to-date PowerPoint for this. But basically, that video will take you through core activity 1, so you don't have to facilitate that discussion. The video will do it for you. Core activity 2 is employability skills, and this is a really important section that I like to use with the students. Or, yeah, when I'm in the classroom, I specifically like it. So, we've got the critical skills, of course, that the Conference Board of Canada has identified as skills that you'll need when working for others. So you can just spend a tiny little bit of time on this with the students. And then my computer is thinking about the next slide, apparently. I'm not sure why, but it is. Probably just the internet connection. We'll just hold on a second. There we go, of course. What do you need to get your dream job? I'm just going to double check that we didn't skip a slide here. So I don't think we did, but I just want to make sure. Okay, that's perfect. All right. So there is a section for the students on page 11 to go through the employability skills they have. This is a cool exercise. So you can ask the students, do you think that playing video games would help you get a job? And then they'll be like, no, definitely not. And there's a section there on page 11 for the students to go through, and there's little check boxes on the left, and it'll say, if you enjoy playing fast-paced, exciting games like laser tag or video games, then you can say to an employer that you're observant, react quickly, and work well under pressure. Of course, there's a whole list of these things that goes on all the way to page 13, and you can give the students a couple of minutes to go through this, and they'll see what skills that they've already got based on what they already do. So I think that that's super important. All right. And again, that's an activity that's quite self-explanatory, and the students can figure that out themselves. So we'll move on, and this is actually an extended activity. It's called Hire This Person. It's on page 20, and we have a video here. It's Kid Snippets. I'm not sure if you guys have seen the Kid Snippets series of videos before, but basically it's two guys who get their kids to act out a situation or a scenario, or like, imagine it, and so they speak to one another, and then the two older, so the two fathers imitate what the student or what their kids said. So they're really hilarious and really cute. So it's about a 2-minute video that will show the students, and it basically gets them thinking about job interviews. So this video is embedded into the PowerPoint. It should just play. At MRU, all the technology should be A-OK. If something isn't working, of course, Kimberly and myself will be there to help you, but it should be A-OK. All right. So the Hire This Person activity. So we want the students to break up into 6 groups, and you're going to assign them a profile. So there are different profiles for the students in their books that they'll be able to see. It starts on page 14. 14 of the students' book, and there's 6 of them. Sanjay, Steve, Mia, Zoe. Basically, they're students or youth that are looking for work, and each one of them is looking for a specific job and will need to be going for a job interview. So this is a role-playing activity where the students will pick somebody in their group to be the student looking for the job. And then we have a set of interview questions that will be provided to you on the day of, but they're just basic interview questions, and they're specific for each job. So for example, I've got one in my hand that's Zoe. Zoe wants to be a cashier at a local paint store. So some of the questions are, what are your greatest strengths and how will it help you with this job? Tell us about something that you did recently that made you proud, and what are your plans 5 years from now? So in the little description that the students have on their workbook on page 14, 15, or 16, they will be able to actually find the answers to those questions and be able to prep for them and answer for them in an interview. There is a list for the students on page 17 for the students to prepare for the interview as well. And this is an awesome list of questions. There's 7 questions, and it basically gets the students to think about the questions that somebody would ask them in a job interview. So what skills do you have, or does this person have, that would make you or the person right for the job? What experience or skills would allow this person to work well with others? Things like that. What is the person's strongest skill? What skill does this person need to improve? Of course, that is my least favorite question when anybody has ever asked me that in a job interview. I don't know about you guys, but that's my least favorite for sure. All right. So there is a checklist, and in this case, we've just sort of put them all up on the slide here for the students to follow on page 18 during the interview while it's happening. Now, there's 2 options. You can have each group interview in front of the class, or you can have them interview by themselves in their groups. Now, these are things to do in an interview. So if they, basically if they didn't do these things, there's a place for the students to check off they didn't do this, or, you can have a discussion with the students about whether or not they did that or not. Especially if you're in a role where you've done job interviews and you do hire people, this is somewhere where you can definitely lend some of your work experience or life experience. So moving on from that, so that's basically where we get them the interview know-how. We move on. There's a bunch of stuff about finding a job and where to look for work in the student's workbook and also in the program guide, but we don't necessarily spend a ton of time going through all of that because they will be privy to all that knowledge when they go into high school. If you want to, of course, spend a little bit of time showing them, a sample application form and talking to them about a resume if you want, but like I said, we don't have a ton of time to do everything, so we just want to give them some of the skills that they're going to need. So moving on to lesson 4. You guys are being really quiet, freaking me out a little bit.
Still here, though.
That's good. You're definitely freaking me out. I actually had a moment, I'm not sure if you guys heard it. I was like, oh my gosh, where did you guys go? And it's because we're in full screen and I lost your list. And I thought maybe I had somehow closed the webinar software, and these guys are probably laughing at me because it was kind of hilarious. All right, so discussion, of course. We talked about this in the last 2 lessons. I'm not going to tell you guys what you're doing. Of course, group discussion or whole class discussion. You guys can ask them these questions. Wrap it up. All right. Lesson 4, plan your success. This lesson is a lot of fun as well. It basically starts to wrap up what we've talked about all day. And at the end of this lesson, there is a trivia game for the students to play. So statistically speaking is the first lesson, and we want to ask the students what are the hot jobs. So, of course, oil and gas, retail, construction and manufacturing, health and social care. I can guarantee that almost everybody in this room is part of one of these, with the exception of Hannah. Yeah, actually, even Hannah and I sort of fall into the health and social care. So, yeah. All right, so this slide has 2 videos on it. When you do click on a video, it will play full screen, so if you're worried that the size is a little bit small. Of course, there's a CareerCast Best and Worst Jobs of 2013. So that's a 3-minute video that you can watch, as well as the best jobs of the future. So you can see there in the little snapshot, personal finance advisor, there's a bunch of jobs in there. I recommend having a quick look at each of these videos when you guys get a chance. Again, they're hosted on YouTube, but we also have them embedded in this PowerPoint. So either way, I'll give you guys the link, and you should be able to see and source out the videos if you can't click on the link, but you should be able to. Just sort of depends. I find that some computers, when they download it, the links break or stuff happens. technology. All right, so that basically takes the students through core activity 1, statistically speaking. It's about 7 minutes of video, but it's awesome because the students really, especially at this time, is after their lunch break, it's, you know, they're going to want to do something that's a little less you speaking and a little bit more like, ooh, that's interesting. So they'll like these videos. Next is career planning steps. And there's a little star, and at the bottom there it says you will revisit some or all of these steps many times during your lifetime. That is so true. So in the student's workbook on page 25, there is a basically looks like a bar chart, so step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We've also made it into a cycle here because, of course, it is a cycle. It's not just a get to the top and you're done kind of thing. So we've given them 2 sort of ways to look at it. So learning about themselves, identifying their options, research, making a decision, set a goal and plan, and always reevaluate. There is opportunity for you, of course, to elaborate on each of these steps, and you might even want to bring in some of your personal experience. Maybe you have, you know, done a career change already in your life, or maybe, you know, you can tell us about when you were researching a job, you really realized that that wasn't the job for you, and you changed your mind, or something like that. Bring in some of your personal experiences, and it'll help the students relate a little bit better. All right. So again, like I said, as we go through the cycle, there's opportunities for you guys to elaborate on each step. So just sit through these slides. Of course, you guys can come back and go through this a little bit. Set a goal and plan, and always reevaluate. So good. Next, you guys will notice in your program guide on page 25, for activity 3 is the future trivia game. That's great. We're not going to do it right now. We're going to come back and do that one last. So we're going to move to core activity 4, which is called Who is My Role Model? And it's a 5-minute quick activity for the students on page 26 to list who their role model is. And you'll see it's a circle there on page 26 of the student workbook if you're looking at it. And there's a bunch of different lines next to that circle. And that is an area where the students can define the things that they admire about that person, or some qualities that that makes them a good role model for that person or for that student. And then setting goals. Of course, we set a little bit of, okay, what is one goal you want to accomplish after today? And there's a section there for the students to write that. Okay, future trivia game. So this is when you know that you are nearing the end. You're in the home stretch. The students at this point are excited. They want to play a game. So I always ask them, who wants to play a game? They're like, hey, I want to play a game. They get really excited about this. So we have 2 competing teams. They stand on opposite sides of the classroom. You can split this up however you want. You can just split the class down the middle. You can go around and number the students 1, 2, 1, 2. Or if you have an equal separation of boys and girls, sometimes that can be fun. Do the boys versus the girls, but totally up to you or the teacher, however you guys want to team them up. So if you answer the trivia question correctly, you stay standing. If not, they can sit down. So there's a couple of ways that you can play this, of course. This one, we have lifelines, so they can ask a friend, ask the class, can ask your teacher. And then all play means that the entire team can decide on an answer. So basically, the way that it works is the team all stands up, and then they go through, and each person on the team will answer a question as we go through. So we have the FUTURE, which is like our Jeopardy. So it's Jeopardy. It really is Jeopardy, but we've added a couple little things. So like I said, there's ask a friend, lifeline, and what was the other one? Sorry, ask your teacher. So friend, teacher, or lifeline. Okay, so for, let's say, for example, the students picked U for 400. So you would just click U for 400, and the question is true or false. You can't get an SIM until you finish your first job. So social insurance number. To get the answer, just click false. You need this before you start your first job. You can get a social insurance number at any age. So if the student got that question right, of course it was for 400. Then you go back to the game board, and what you would do is put that 400 points up. And then maybe because of the way that I'm sharing this, it's not showing, but the link should also turn a different color so that it's, so you know that you clicked on that one. If they got the question wrong, of course, then they sit down. So, and of course, the team with the most points at the end will win. So you can go through and play this game basically until the end. I just clicked on TU for 900. So what is apprenticeship training? And of course, we all know, we can tell that the answer is C, or B, sorry, training to learn a skilled trade while earning money. So, yeah. While C may partly be true, B is the answer. Return to game board, of course. So that takes you to the end of the lesson. I just want to show you guys the 900 level questions because, well, they're a little bit difficult. The demand for skilled workers in all types of jobs in Canada will soon be greater than the number of people trained and ready to work. True. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Huge deficit, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not sure if you guys heard what Barry said, but he was just giving but Hannah was asking, oh, really? Like, that's true? I didn't know that. And basically, yeah, there's not enough population. People are, they're not interested necessarily in the skilled trades. Yeah, they're not matching up with skilled trades. So, yeah. So just stuff to think about and things like that. All right, so I'm going to jump back to where I was before. So give me 1 second. Stop sharing. Okay. All right, so now we're back here where we were, and I want to look back at the training PowerPoint. Okay. So we've gone through the 4 lessons. I've gone through the entire book with you guys. Awesome. All right. So what to do on the day of at EFS MRU. So you guys are going to arrive at MRU. We'll send you an agenda. I'm assuming that you'll probably arrive around 8 o'clock. I will also be sending you guys each information about parking, and you'll get a parking pass. If you're an independent volunteer like yourself, Barry, you'll be getting it specifically from me. If you're volunteering for your organization, it'll be coming, for those of you at ESO, it'll be coming from Catherine. So she'll be sending that down to you. And I think that that's all that it's on. It's just ESO and GE in here. So, yeah. All right. So you guys will come upstairs where we are on the 3rd floor of the building. Of course, I'll have a map for you, but it's called the Knuckle Room where we'll be at. So just come up there. There's going to be breakfast for you. Register. You'll get your materials. Then we'll be able to send you guys downstairs. You can set up in your classroom. So you'll be on the 1st or 2nd floor of your classroom of the same building in the same, usually same wing. So it's not very far away from us. And then there's a little bit of a gray area here. We don't have it quite laid out, but what we'll do is we'll have a sign for you for each classroom. And we basically do a little system where it's like you're at the airport and you're picking somebody up from the airport and you've got your little sign. So you'll be able to stand down at the front doors with Kim, and as the students come off their buses, you will be able to hold the sign up, and the students will be like, that's my class, and that's my school, or the teacher, of course, will be there too. And then you'll say, okay, great, and then you just take them down to the classroom wherever you are. Most of the classrooms for most of the days are on the 1st floor, but some of them might be on the 2nd floor. You just have to go up 1 flight of stairs, or, of course, there's elevators, too. So this is the point now where you get to introduce yourself to the teachers. Stephen, the teacher will know which volunteer they have based on what their sign says. So it'll say the school name, and then it'll say the class So classes are usually like 9A, B, C, or it'll be 9-1, or it could be like if it's the teacher's last name is like, let's say, for example, my last name is McKay. If it's McKay, it might be like 9MC or 9 McKay, or, you know. They just, some schools, they have different ways to identify their different classes. Teachers will know which one they are. So you introduce yourself to the teacher. This is the time when you want to talk to the teacher about any of the concerns with the students, stuff like that. You can also do that, I find, if you want to do your icebreaker and get them started, because there's a couple of silent, sort of they can record themselves activities where you can ask them to give the certificates of completion to the teacher, and discuss any last-minute questions or concerns, of course. Sounds good. All right, what to do for dismissing students. So when you guys are done, there will be student surveys for the students to fill out. This is a great opportunity to get student feedback. So I say usually about 5 or 10 minutes before, you know, we say that the end is, which is usually like 2 o'clock. Give the students their surveys, and then have them fill it out and give it to you before they leave to go get on their bus, and hand out certificates. And then what you'll get to do is collect any unused program materials, take the student surveys back upstairs, and we'll have an afternoon snack of cookies, maybe chips, some stuff. We'll have some stuff for you guys. And then we're going to do a group photo with all of the volunteers for the day, and each volunteer will be emailed a survey after. So it just helps us improve our programs, our training. It's completely anonymous, and absolutely we appreciate your feedback. So, like I said, we're going to look at a map. Here is a map of Mount Royal University. Some of you may be familiar with the campus. Some of you might not be. What I'll do, I'm not sure if you guys can see my mouse or not, but this EA building here is the building that we're going to be in. There's a road right here that will be that's where the buses will be dropping off at. And then the parking lot that we use is just next to the EA building, hopefully. There is word that Mount Royal University has been approved for a new library, and our beloved parking lot, where we've been parking for MRU for the past few years, is the location for it. So hopefully they plan to break ground on like May 9th, the day after MRU. So hopefully it's not until after, but if that's the case, then there's another parking lot that we'll use, and I will be sending you guys out all specific information and maps of where to go and what to do. So again, like I just said, parking. So lot 7 is the lot that we would be using. That little yellow blip there, that's where our building is on Mount Royal campus. And last but not least, connect with us, of course. We have our website, jasouth.alberta.org. We're also on Facebook. We're on Twitter, and we will be using Twitter to tweet out photos from the event as it goes, as well as Facebook. We'll have those photos there too. And Mount Royal, of course, at Mount Royal for you. So there is a Twitter handle, which I'll include in all of your volunteer packages too, for the Economics for Success event. That, or a hashtag, I guess. Correct me, I'm pretty good with social media, but I'm not the expert. Hashtag. Thanks, guys. All right. So I just want to thank you guys all for volunteering with us, and I finished right on time, even with all the little extra stuff we had to do. If you have questions, of course, you can feel free to stay on after here. You can email me anything you want. You can call me. I will make sure that you all have my phone number, or you can get it from Catherine. All right? Any questions?
Two quick questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
One is, will we know which class or which school ahead of time, or we just find out that day?
You might not know what class or what school you're with. If you have a specific preference, like you want to, you have somebody that you know goes to a specific school, let Catherine know, and then she can let me know, and I'll try to see if that school is coming on that day. But you will know who your partner is beforehand. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And my next question was, as far as sort of, I know you mentioned that we'll be able to project this presentation. As far as anything else available in the room, flip charts, whiteboard, chalkboard, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there should be either a chalkboard or a whiteboard in every classroom. Most of MRU is whiteboards, if I remember, but some of them have chalk. We do provide whiteboard markers in each of the kits, and chalkboards, there's normally a little bit of chalk left over if you want to write in chalk. But most of the time, I'm pretty sure they have whiteboards. So you'll be able to use that. It's important, of course. Yeah.
I think that's it.
All right. Well, like I said, if you guys have any other questions, just email me, let me know. I, again, thank you very much for volunteering for FSMIU this year. I'm looking forward to it. Great. Thanks, Stephen. All right.
Thanks. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye.